All right. So I'm going to read a quick bio. And Lily is a multidisciplinary illustrator, animator, and artist based in Brooklyn, New York. She has done work for the New York Times, the New Yorker, 21st Century Fox Films, the Boston Globe, NPR, and many others, and was awarded a gold medal from the Society of Illustrators for her directorial debut with short animation commissioned in 2018's NPR's Invisibilia podcast. So welcome, Lily.
Nice. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Lily. I am, like Christina said, illustrator, animator, kind of artist. I do a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm also a teacher. I teach digital illustration at the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is a art school here in New York. I'm going to sort of go through, I feel like I get a lot of questions about the earlier stages of my career. So I have this presentation kind of organized chronologically, going through some of my student work and then some of my earlier career work, and it sort of progresses. So I think you can kind of see how I've evolved. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, just about 8 years. So I have quite a bit of stuff to show. Let's just jump into it. I graduated from the School of Visual Arts, which is a art school here in New York, in 2013. So I'm going to show you all some of my student work. This is all later student work from my junior, senior years, because I don't really, I feel like I lost track of a lot of the traditional work I did. And this is kind of the point when I started working digitally, or it's actually hybrid digital traditional, so a lot of this is my later junior and senior year student work. This was a piece I did. To be honest, I don't even remember what the prompt was, these pieces back then are a lot of scanned ink drawing, pencil stuff that I put together in Photoshop. I have since switched to a mostly digital practice.
Hey, Lily, you're not sharing screen yet.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's probably something I should be doing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's my little intro slide. Gosh, I do that with my students all the time. They're I'm starting to talk about something. They're you're not sharing your screen. Here we go. Here's my little intro slide. So like I mentioned, this is some student work that I did in, I think, probably 2012. Back then I was working with kind of scanned ink drawings and other textures and stuff that I would put in. So it's sort of a hybrid digital traditional process. Like I mentioned, I mostly work digitally nowadays. Here's some more student work from later 2012, 2013, my senior year probably. I was working on a lot of series then. So I had one series that was kind of all about different fears and fears that I have specifically. I think this was an assignment to illustrate fears, and I ended up taking it into a series. This one is being freaked out when a plane's flying really low overhead. And then this one over here was based on an assignment to illustrate a turn of phrase or a euphemism. So when someone's dead, you'll say they're pushing up daisies, and this was an illustration based on that. Like I mentioned, this stuff's all a hybrid of ink drawing that I kind of color in Photoshop and change up in Photoshop. So the mishmash process. Okay, here's some more images from that fear series that I did in my senior year of college. These are sort of, I guess, maybe a bit specific to living in New York, but you hear these horrible stories about people getting pushed onto subway tracks. So that's what I based this piece on. And then there's also these weird grates in the sidewalk, which I'm sure are everywhere. And I feel when I'm walking over them, it's always ooh, what's under there? So just kind of, basing some illustrations on that. And this is stuff that I was, using to promote myself, after I graduated. This was kind of the portfolio I was building to, trying to get my career started. Right, so here's some more work from that era. These were done either I think this was done at the end of my senior year, and this was done maybe shortly afterwards. So this piece was about a town in Pennsylvania called Centralia that has this, it's a ghost town. It's it had to be abandoned, and because I think it was in the 60s or 70s, a coal vein under the town caught fire and rendered the whole thing uninhabitable. I like this sort of slightly spookier side of things, and like I like illustrating things based on like real events. So I think that was sort of a theme that I explored a lot in like some of this work where I was early like promoting myself. And then this over here is a portrait of this musician called Nick Cave that I like. And it's sort of conceptual. I think it was an assignment to do like a conceptual portrait. So it was like portrait of the artist with like some stuff inspired by his lyrics. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of what I have for my student work. And then this section that I'm going to show you is all work that I've like self-initiated. I wish I still had more time to do like personal work. I try to make time to do it, but I'm definitely a big believer in it. Not only doing work that's like assigned to you, but creating this work that you're excited about to like help find your own voice. So as I go through this, it'll be sort of chronological from like when I was kind of starting out to now. So this was probably like one of the, and I know we're going to talk about like all this career stuff in this question section later on, but so this was like one of the things that I made that really kind of started getting me some actual like professional work. So I did a bunch of, these are only two illustrations from it, but I made like a little booklet zine. I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know if y'all like know what zines are, but like, basically like kind of little DIY like booklets that people make. So these are all like illustrated versions of like alien encounters that like all the different stories and things that have happened over the years. So I interpreted some of those as illustrations and made like a whole little booklet, and I probably printed up like maybe 100 of them or so, maybe 100, 200, and like mailed out a chunk and then, sold a chunk of them online. And I think this is like one of the first things that got me work. So yeah, I guess the theme throughout this is that I tend to work in series a lot, which I find to be helpful. So yeah, here's some more personal work that I did, just sort of pieces like kind of trying to find my voice. Again, at this point, this is all still a hybrid of ink drawing and like digital color. So yeah, I think you can kind of see some of the themes that I like sort of spooky stuff, like kind of these like moody images. Yeah. So this is all from I think 2013, 2014 era. So moving on, I think around this point, 2015, which would have been 2015, like 2016. So this is about like 2-3 years after I graduated. I think this is kind of when this is when I switched to all digital. And I think that helped me find my voice a bit. I've now since like kind of moved back to working, or at least like playing around with traditional media again and really enjoying it. But I think at this phase of my career or of my, artistic development, switching to all digital was good because like I needed like a little bit more flexibility to like work through my problems as I was like still learning about stuff. So this piece was done for a friend of mine who was putting together, it was like a really loose prompt. He was putting together a group show just called Phenomenon. So like, it was just like, use that word as a prompt and it's very open-ended. So that was this piece, which is like, yeah, again, like one of the first pieces of mine that actually like got some traction and attention online, which definitely felt good. And then this piece over here is from a bit later on. These were probably created like about a year apart, but I wanted to put them together because like I feel like they were two pieces that like felt like, oh, I've hit a new like, level with this. Like, this is like I've stumbled upon something with this piece that I can take into further work. So this one here is about again, I feel like as I'm going through, I'm realizing just how morbid my work is, but this is about when you climb Mount Everest, like it's there's obviously a lot of deaths on Mount Everest when you're climbing it from, all the danger inherent in doing such a thing. So if you do die up there, they leave you up there because they can't, it's too dangerous to take you back down. So, as people are climbing, they pass like these sort of grim reminders. And I sort of took that idea and kind of, exaggerated and abstracted it into this piece. Okay, yeah, let's keep going on. So I guess this stuff is like kind of personal work, kind of like gallery work. I don't really make like much money off this stuff, but I still like to do these group shows. So this one was for this gallery called spoke art, and they do these like kind of pop culture inspired shows. So it'll be like, you know, this one was like all like Wes Anderson movies, and, you know, you like do your piece, and they, you know, it's like a gallery thing where, you know, if you have an original, they'll sell it and split the price with you, or like, because I work digitally, I would just sell prints through them. So yeah, so I did a few Wes Anderson ones for them, but this was the one I wanted to show, which is based on the Life Aquatic, which is a great movie. And yeah, I did a few. There was like a period of time, I haven't done them in a couple of years, but there was a period of time, probably from like 2015 to 2017, where I was doing a lot of these like movie-based pieces for galleries or just for myself. So this one I think was also for Spoke Art for their Mononoke show, and then this one over here, I think I just did personally for like personal work, and this is inspired by this horror movie called It Follows. I love horror movies. It's like definitely another big inspo for me. So yeah, let's move on. This is just something I did purely for myself. Like I was hoping to I had this idea of like doing a lot of these illustrations of like weird monuments out in like, out in remote nature. But this was the only one I ever got done before I didn't work on the idea anymore, but I still like it. Oops. Okay. Oh, I forgot to put the description on this one. So this, again, like another thing I wanted to do a series of, and then got too busy and only ended up doing one piece of, but it was basically like, I wanted to do a series about how like when humans leave a place that they once inhabited, like nature really returns and takes over again. So like, you know, there's examples of it, like the Chernobyl site of like the nuclear accident in the 80s. This one is about how like there's something called like the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, where it's like a stretch of, you know, it runs along the whole border, but it's maybe only like 30 miles wide. And in that strip, like all of this wildlife has come back because like there's no humans or like any settlement or anything there. So yeah, I found that very inspiring. So I did this piece. This is probably from like 2018, I'm going to say. The years all blend together after a while, though, I tell you. Right, here's another little personal piece. I was like, I think I made this after I played Monument Valley, and I was like, it's definitely like very heavily inspired by it, which is like, it's a perspective-y like puzzle game. But yeah, I wanted to just kind of play around with like that like isometric perspective. So yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into like some more of the client work, because like that's why we're all in art school, right? We want to, you know, try to get people to pay us to make money after school. So again, this is like the first field of illustration that I broke into. You know, I think as I go on, you know, I kind of work in a lot of different areas, but this was like kind of the thing that got me really started. So again, this section will be organized chronologically, starting with like some of the first jobs I got to, you know, more current day. Right. So this is the first illustration assignment I ever got, and I lucked out. It was for the New York Times, which was like, I felt like a big shot when that happened. Even though, you know, they don't pay very well, which I think it's quite unfortunate. But you know, again, I guess it has class. So this piece was done for the Times about like, it was for their business section about like office vacation policies that are like unfair and leave some people out. So you know, that's the concept I was trying to illustrate here. And I think what you'll see and this is from, I think, the end of 2013, so like maybe 6 months or so after I graduated college. And you'll see, like, as I go through this section, it's a lot of like editorial illustrations, often about communicating a concept. So like, you know, you have an article, a story, something, and like you're supposed to kind of capture the overall like meaning and mood of the piece of writing that it's accompanying. So here's some more early editorial pieces. This was a cover for an alt weekly, which is like, you know, super, super, super small newspaper that pays next to nothing. But, you know, it was definitely really, you know, a really, you know, cool experience to like see my work displayed like this. And yeah, this was about, you know, again, I think you can kind of get the gist of the illustration from the cover. But it was about, you know, some people that, a couple that adopted, you know, a boy who had like some really severe emotional problems, and you know, it not working out and all that. So they actually gave me the concept for this one. Like I didn't really come up with this idea, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. And then this one over here, I think this was also like 2013, 2014. And it was about like cybersecurity or something. Again, after so many years, you do so many images that they kind of start to blend together. Right. So moving along, this again, I'm starting to. This is probably like 2015. Moving along, like I've been working for maybe a year or two at this point. And I think kind of coming into my style a little bit more. So this piece was about protecting fragile ecosystems. So I chose to represent fragility with this teapot and putting these different ecosystems as like the China pattern, and then people working together to protect it. Yeah, I feel like a lot of editorial illustration is like little people doing things. Right. So this piece was from 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. Again, like this was, within that first year that I was like working as an illustrator. And it was, I think this was like one that came out like really, I thought it came out really well at the time. And I still am happy with this piece. And, I was like, oh, this one came out good. I gotta send this to other people so I can get more work. And it was about basically taking money away from fossil fuels and moving it towards green energy.
And what publication was this in the last one?
Oh, so this one was Sierra Magazine, which is a magazine that goes out to supporters of the Sierra Club, which is like an environmental organization. This one I think was the New Republic. Something happened. I used to have the descriptions on here, but they got deleted somehow. Yeah, so this one I think is the New Republic, which is like another magazine. Almost all these are like magazines, newspapers. Right, so this was a little bit later on. I think this is probably from 2015, which is for the New York Times, again, for their business section. I work for other sections now, but for a long time, like the business section was like the only one that I would hire me. Like, I think like something like maybe 3 or 4, 5 years of like working with them that I only worked for this one section before other ones started to hire me. But and this section I think tends to be a bit more boring. It's a lot of businessmen and like money stuff. Not as interesting as like books or like science. But I think a lot of times the challenge is to try to make it fun for yourself. So so this one was about like investors like trying to get higher yields, but like they there's like perils along the way or something. And yeah, this was done as a combination of ink and digital. So like all this like water brush stuff is like an ink drawing that I scanned in, and then like the lines are ink drawing, and then added color in digitally. Okay, this was a section cover for the Boston Globe, so that's why it's like this like really long like newspaper cover format, and it was about how money makes a marriage more likely to like, or money is tied, like having money is tied to a lower divorce rate, basically. So again, it's a lot of this editorials, a lot of symbols and stuff. So using the ring as symbol for wealth, and it crumbles at the bottom where these broken families struggle, and the wealthy family is together on the top. So I'll start showing as I mentioned, I'm an animator as well. And through editorial work is like kind of how I got started with animation, because like I guess it still is a thing, but like there was a really big trend of like all these editorial outlets wanting like animated illustrations, these little GIFs in like probably 2016, 2017. So yeah, this one was about a treatment for Alzheimer's that involves like electronic stimulation to the brain. And the way that the colors shift here was actually an accident, but we ended up keeping it in because it sort of adds to like the feeling of like these like these memories playing out as like a film or something. So yeah, so there's sometimes some happy accidents that happen in work. And this was done for NPR, National Public Radio. Cool. This is another for NPR, and it was about how a sedentary lifestyle can lead to like mobility issues. So, kind of laying over sedentary character with, people suffering from some mobility issues, and, playing with color to sort of differentiate the two. So this is more current work now. This is from maybe a year or two ago, and it was done for the New Yorker, and it was about this reporter of theirs that went down to the Great Barrier Reef and like talked to this ecologist, and they were basically just talking about like, you know, the terrible future in store for the Great Barrier Reef if we don't, you know, intervene. I tend to do a lot of work about climate change too, which, you know, is a subject I'm passionate about, but sometimes it can get depressing. All right, so, oh, right, okay, so this slide here I wanted to talk about because, again, this is like New York Times, which you know, I think a lot of people like think, oh my God, that's like, you know, a client that's like very unattainable, but like if you're interested in this kind of like illustration that is meant to communicate a point, like they are a lot of people's first job. Like they hire a lot of new illustrators, you know, they just have a big capacity for hiring illustrators. So if you're interested in doing this kind of thing, don't be afraid to reach for the Times. They're definitely not unattainable. Regardless though, I wanted to show, so all these images, what they have in common is that they are done in 24 hours or less. So it's kind of common with some editorial work that like, you know, it's the stories are always shifting up to the last minute. So they, you know, the art sometimes it's like, okay, we don't know what's running or not. And like, we need to get some art. So most of these, like I get an email, like kind of midday, you know, say I get an email like midday Wednesday, and it's usually due the like end of the day Thursday or something. Sometimes though, they even email you in the morning and they need sketches at like 2 p.m. and a final at 7 p.m. So these were all images created under that kind of deadline. So you can see some are black and white, some are color, but you know, typically it's a bit simpler, a bit more graphic, you know, whatever you can get done in 24 hours or so. Okay, so gonna keep going through here. This is another Times illustration, and this is kind of when I started working for some different sections. And this was done for the travel section, back when travel was a thing. So they had a feature where they sent out one of their reporters to like the 52 places they picked like 52 places that like, you know, are like the, I don't know, top travel destinations. And they sent somebody to them, like she went to one place a week for a year. So this was like the kickoff, and it was about New Orleans. So, you know, taking inspiration from a lot of the architecture, you know, obviously the music culture, bit of the Mardi Gras stuff. This was like kind of one that the idea kept like getting changed and changed, but I'm happy with where it ended up. And this here is like the reporter as she goes off, so you know she's like sort of differentiated from everything else around her. Okay, another New York Times travel section. This one was about a family who's they owned like a second home in the Bahamas, and it got destroyed, and it was kind of just like talking about their story. It got destroyed in one of the hurricanes. Okay, yeah, so I think I put a bunch of all the New York Times stuff in a row now. This is another one. They're a frequent client of mine. That's another thing, like, you know, being an illustrator, it's really all about like those repeat clients. You know, you get like, you slowly start adding to your roster, but it's a lot of people that come back to you for repeat business that make up like the money you make. So yeah, so I'm happy to be able to call them one of mine. And this piece was about like, it was like somebody who rents out their second home or their home on Airbnb, and like they were writing in being like, you know, really concerned about like people not treating their property well or whatever. So, you know, it was kind of illustrating that sort of tension between owners of Airbnbs and like the people who rent them. Okay, this is another New York Times. I think this whole section was going to be that. This one was about it was like a sort of like for the real estate section, and I think it was just about like you know, the life of like the real estate reporter. So it was like meant to be like little windows into all these different houses. So this one was for Milwaukee Magazine, who again, they used to be a pretty frequent client of mine. I think they've sort of fallen off. I haven't worked with them in a few years, but this one was a story about like choosing assisted suicide. So, you know, like choosing to die at home surrounded by your family, and, you know, kind of just trying to create like a metaphor for that. This was another editorial. Sorry, I didn't realize this was so long. I'll move through a little bit quicker. This one was about just like, it was like sort of an overall article that talked about like humans and their fascination with whales throughout the ages. So like, you know, there's like kind of some different like type whales in here because it like touched on like the different aspects of the article, like, you know, this like robotic one. I don't actually remember exactly like what was going on in the article for that. But yeah, that's that. And now, so this one is from last year, from 2020, which you would think it was about COVID, the way it looks, but it's actually done in like January before it, and it was about higher rates of sexual assault among female surgeons. So, you know, trying to illustrate that tension, that danger that female surgeons are in. But, you know, I think could probably double as a COVID illustration at this point. This one, again, you know, I think I'm now going through like another change, like kind of away from this more like line-based, like flat color work and into like something a little more expressive and painterly. So this was from this past summer, and it was illustrating something for the Boston Globe's book review. And it was this book about these three siblings that find a man who is like, you know, beaten nearly to death in a field near their house. And like, you know, they end up getting help and he lives, but, you know, it sort of changes their lives after that. So that was like the prompt. And, you know, I think for these kinds of like for a book review or something, it, you know, it's often like a much more mood driven, like less about like illustrating the exact concept and more about like capturing the feeling. So yeah, that's what I was kind of going for here. Here's, so this is for like a science and technology publication that I used to illustrate for somewhat frequently. Again, you know, clients come and go, so I feel like I haven't worked with them in a little bit, but this was about how like scientists really still don't understand a lot about the human brain. It feels like there's just a ton of stuff that we absolutely don't know. So, you know, showing like this kind of very abstracted, weird brain compared to, you know, the scientists looking at the picture of the real one. Oh, and for this column, they have like a set color scheme you need to use. So like all these colors, it's like taken from this palette that they gave me. And you can see in the next illustration, it's for a different article about like phone charging stations at like malls and stuff and how they'll take your data, but, you know, still using that kind of same color scheme. And a third one for the same column with the same color scheme. And this one was about how there's like experimental office furniture that'll like create tweaks, you know, to like increase your productivity, and like how that's like kind of unethical for your boss to put in your office. Cool. So this one is also from 2020, and it was for NBC News, just about how engaging in like messy playtime is beneficial for kids. So, you know, lots of different kids doing lots of messy things and like, you know, learning. This one was for a financial magazine. So it's this financial magazine called Plan Sponsor that like all their articles are super, super boring, but the art director sends you just like a really like vague concept. So it was just like an unbridgeable gap or unreachable gap. So, and then, you know, it's a lot of creative freedom after that. So, yeah, so that's what this one's about. This was another for that same financial magazine about, it's like, I think the prompt was like, everyone wants like the hot new thing. So, you know, they let me draw some potheads, which I thought was, I kind of pitched it as a joke, but then they picked it. So I was like, all right, let's do it. Another one for that same magazine about like cybersecurity. So like, you know, even between like this one client, you know, I think you can kind of see like I work in some different styles. I don't, you know, I think there's some artists that have like a very distinct way they work, but I like to experiment. I like to do different things. So yeah, this is all for the same client. Another one for the same client, again, you know, like some experimental kind of different, you know, trying something more shape-based than line-based. Same client again, you know, they're again, you know, like I mentioned, it's a lot of repeat clients. So I thought it might be helpful to see, you know, oh, all the different kinds of stuff you do from like one, for one client. So yeah, so this one was about like investing in green energy again, or like, you know, moving. Yeah, so I think it was about investing in green energy, but yeah, like we have the oil coming off of these cute little mountains. One more, I think this is one more. Yeah, one more for Plan Sponsor, which was, I think the prompt was like clearing a path or something. So got to draw this like weird animal, which was very fun. I like doing stuff like that. Right. Okay. So this was another book review for Oprah Magazine, and it was about a book about boy, a Hawaiian boy who falls off a ship but is saved by a shark, and then like I think there's like some shark mythology that weaves into the book. Okay, so I want to sort of walk you through we'll talk more in depth about the process, but basically when I do this kind of stuff, I have to pitch multiple ideas in sketch form, and then they pick one that I make final from. They make the final from. I imagine you all have done something like this, you know, at some point along your college career. But I just kind of want to show you like what the sketch to final process looks like, because I think that could be helpful. So these were sketches I did for a prompt I got about like, it was during the time of all the straw bans. So it was talking about how like banning straws isn't going to really solve the problem, and that the problem is, you know, that there's a lot of plastic in the ocean. It's not just straws. So here's like, you know, this one is just like a kind of trash as fish swimming. So these like little like fishy bottles and stuff. This one's just, you know, a figure holding straws standing in the polluted ocean. This is someone drinking out of a straw with like polluted water in it. And then this one is like a kind of Moby Dick like style, like whaling ship, you know, lifting out a huge straw, but, you know, there's still all this other plastic. They ended up going with this one for the final. So you can see like this is like kind of the level of sketch I turn in, and then the final looks like this. So yeah, I think that's it for editorial. Oh wait, no, that's not it for editorial. This slide got out of order. This is another New York Times one though, and also showing you some sketches. So this was about preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure during pregnancy, and it was just like it was just like kind of I think it was when they were launching this parenting section and talking about just like different, you know, things that you might experience during pregnancy. So again, like a pretty loose concept, just like illustrating this high blood pressure, but this is kind of what they ended up going with. So here, the sketch to final was a lot more direct, but yeah, hopefully helpful to see. Okay, so in addition to that, so like all of the editorial work I just showed you all, like that's kind of what I consider my work. Like it has my name attached. Like people are coming to me to hire me because like they like my ideas and they like my style and they want me to draw it in my style. I also do advertising work, which is where the animation ties in a little bit. You know, I do animation for editorial clients too, but so for advertising, I'm often hired as like a set of hands to kind of help them, you know, work through a bunch of different ideas. So it's not about really like my style or my ideas. Usually it's more about like, you know, speed and, you know, ability to work in like different styles. So I think you'll sort of see like the difference between the other work and this in this section here. And the rest of the presentation is much shorter. We're through the bulk of it now. So these were commissioned as like promotional gifts for this Krampus horror movie that came out. This is like back in 2015 now. You know, again, the sections are more chronological. And I was commissioned to do a series of these. There were a few more, but they didn't come out as good because the whole thing was a rush job. So I did like these two though. And they were basically these like, I think Instagram ads that ran, you know, that they were using to like promote the movie. Here's another for the same client, and these were used to promote The Shape of Water, which is the Guillermo del Toro monster romance movie that came out a few years ago. This one was cool. I got to go like see an advanced screening of it and stuff. So it was fun. And then this, honestly though, these are like exceptional for ad jobs, like getting to do this movie stuff. Mostly ad jobs are this, which is you know, blocky people in bright colors, all very flat, all very, you know, kind of vectory. This is like kind of the style now, like that a lot of commercials want. So yeah, a lot of what I get hired to do for advertising is like this kind of stuff. Allegoria, yep, Allegoria, exactly. So Allegoria is like a style. It's like the style of illustration that was invented for Facebook, but it, you know, has like kind of since become this like very trendy style that is sort of oversaturated in a lot of places. But hey, if you can do it, people want to pay you for it. So what can I say? Here's some more of it. Again, totally different client. This one was done with a commercial house called Meister, which are based out in Portland. And this here was done, this time I was actually working directly with the client, which was like one of those wine subscription boxes. This was a bad job though. They were like a really bad client, and then like we ended up not finishing this because they were like, you know, not happy with what I did, even though I think these came out good. So it's fine. You know, it happens sometimes. But yeah, so it was like this kind of old like romance, like almost like those old like, you know, I don't know how to describe it. Like they had like this like voiceover that was like very deep and smooth and like sexy. So it's supposed to be like, you know, almost like one of those old like late night like, you know, TV ads or something about like, you know, the wine, you know, about the wine. So yeah. And now this is also ad stuff, and this is from last fall, so this is more recent. And this one was kind of fun actually because the studio was basically pitching for an animated segment of this new Ms. Marvel show that's going to be on Disney Plus, I imagine, because Disney owns Marvel. So it was like kind of trying to show concepts of like murals that would like animate as, you know, the characters move through the world. So it was sort of combining photography and art. And yeah, so here was a lot of this like lettering and then, you know, some illustration stuff too. They ended up not, this ended up like just being a pitch that didn't get picked up, but you know, that's what a lot of advertising comes from. But every once in a while, I'll get some other cool stuff, books and all that. So I'm gonna just show you all some of that. Yeah, so these were, this was like maybe the best project I ever got. And I knew a few friends also worked on it, but it was this like research paper about anxiety that they like commissioned a bunch of illustrators to like illustrate people's experiences of anxiety. So like these are all based on like snippets from patients like describing what anxiety feels like to them. Yeah, it was a really, really amazing project. This is, you know, this is the stuff I live for. This is also from that series. So I think I did 6 pieces in all. I think I only have 4 of them in here, but yeah, this is like maybe one of my favorite things I've ever done. In addition to this, which is, so in the subway system here in New York, there's like these long illustrations that run inside the cars, and like they commission, I think, 3 different people to do them each year, and then they change out every year. So this was unfortunately running throughout 2020 when there was record low usage of public transit while everyone worked from home. But yeah, I'm proud of it nonetheless. So the whole thing with this assignment is like you have to do an illustration in this really long format, and it has to like just like relate to the trains, to the train system. So like all the trains have like these little circular logos with like letters in them. Like you can kind of see it here. So you know, that's like what a lot of the paintings incorporate. Okay, right. So animation. Christina mentioned that some of y'all are animation students, so hopefully I can help answer some questions and stuff. So basically, I studied illustration in school, but I am a self-taught animator. So I started doing it. I started animating just as like a, you know, I sort of saw that there was like a trend towards it in the professional world, and I was also just interested in it. Like, you know, I grew up watching a ton of like Ghibli movies. Like, you know, animation's always been a huge source of inspiration for me. So, you know, I was eager to kind of try it. So this is like most of this is like personal work at the beginning here that I, you know, was just doing to kind of like learn and teach myself how to do animation. So this is just like a weird loop, you know. This is like a later animation. I think this slide's got a little out of order again. So this one's a little later on after I'd been animating for a bit, but it was like one of the first like kind of cycles I did like with character animation. So yeah, so this I think piece here ended up getting me a few jobs, which is, it's always nice to realize what sticks with clients. Here's another piece that also got me some jobs. So you know, just like, yeah, just an idea I had of like this person like kind of coming together as they swim up. And yeah, so this is all like self-directed work. Okay, I have a video to show. So this is kind of the end of my work. And this is sort of, yeah, another favorite project of mine. Like those other 2 I showed you and this one are probably the top 3 favorite things I've ever done. But so this is back in 2018. NPR asked me to animate a segment from one of their podcasts called Invisibilia, which is about kind of just like intangible, like far out abstract concepts and stuff, and like, you know, intangible experiences. So you know, extremely up my alley, the kind of stuff that I love doing. the whole piece is like a segment from a longer interview with a woman who experiences this thing called maladaptive daydreaming, which is she, you know, basically like has such an intense like inner fantasy life that, you know, it causes her to like kind of withdraw and like her relationships and real life suffer, and, you know, it's like kind of a fixation obsession. So I will play the video, but first I'm going to show you just like a little bit of the process from it. And then we can look at the whole thing and then move into the questions and answers. So yeah, so this is like the really rough animation. I kind of started, I mean, I started with a storyboard before this, but it was quite messy. So I kind of just wanted to show like the rough and then how it sort of cleans up into the final. And I was working on this. I did the whole, every frame, all drawn by me, one woman endeavor. And I probably worked on it over the course of like 4 months. So it was, yeah, very, very busy time. Right, and then one more rough. Okay, so this is like her like jumping off the swing into her daydream world, and then in the final animation, it ends up looking like this. So I'm gonna actually share the video, because sometimes the video in the slideshow has been buggy, so I have it open on my website, and I'm just gonna show it from there. So let me know if the sound is working or not. Hopefully the sound is working. Oh. Okay, I don't think, was any sound coming through, Christina?
A little bit. It's a little bit mute.
Yeah, I think it's because it's playing on my speaker, not on the, it's not playing through Zoom.
I think that there's a way when you're when you're sharing screen to let it play the sound. If you go into options, I think it will let you play sound.
Yeah, let me see. Oh, in my screen share, right? Yeah, that's what it is. I just did this today too. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing and start share again. Okay, after your video clip. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and let me just disconnect my Bluetooth speaker so it doesn't cause the echo. Sorry. Okay, all right, I'm gonna play it now, and hopefully let me know if this sounds good.
It looks like it's showing your other screen.
It's not showing this one here.
It's showing Bluetooth and other devices.
Oh yeah. Okay, sure.
I know, it's
screen 2. There we go. We're gonna get it. I think this is the time.
Yay.
Okay. So let me. All right. We got this. Thank you all for your patience. Any sound?
No. Let's see if it's.
I'm screen sharing. I'm sharing. It says I'm sharing sound from my computer. Maybe
it
if I
says
put
share
it
sound, so it looks like it should.
Yeah, it is enabled. You got nothing coming through, right? Okay,
No.
well, it's not really that big of a, it's not really that big of a deal. I can just send the link if you all want to watch it later on. I'll drop it into the chat now. But yeah, so it was basically like a 2.5 minute animation I did. And that was kind of like the first like big animation project I had that like ended up leading to other stuff. But, you know, I got that job based on like the other gifts and stuff that was in my presentation. So, that's a kind of
a great
long
animation.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody should go look at it because it is really cool and very conceptual. I mean, we probably could have watched it without the sound, but you know, I recommend everybody to go. And I like how you showed the process too. I mean, one of the things that I found, and if at this point, if anyone has any questions, just put them in the chat. One of the things that I really liked that you showed was your process, and also talking about one thing, looking at your work, it really emphasized what I tell everybody that's aspiring to be an illustrator is that your best currency is your ideas. You're being hired as a problem solver, and you're in, you know, a lot of like where you were talking about, for example, where you were talking about some of the concepts the New York Times gave you or that plan sponsor gave you, and that it's, a very conceptual idea, and you have to make that into an illustration. And so,
Hmm.
I think that's one of the most important things you need to learn as a working illustrator, is that your ideas, if you're good at coming up with compelling ideas based on your prompts, that's how you get more and more work.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I definitely agree. I've had that experience. I would, yeah, fully endorse Christina's advice. She's guiding you all in the right direction.
So I've got some
um,
questions here, and we'll just go through these really quickly. And you actually answered some of the questions in your presentation, so we can probably truncate them a little bit. Um,
mhm.
what when you what made you decide to go into illustration and go to SVA? Like, I mean, what was your process there? Did you decide once you were at school you wanted to be an illustrator? What was that process for you?
Yeah, so I grew up on Long Island, which is like a kind of, suburbs of New York City. So I grew up, maybe about an hour and a half drive away from New York. So, once I was a teenager, I was kind of coming into the city a lot, like, going to concerts, like, checking stuff out. My parents liked coming in too. So, I feel like we would come and visit. So from the beginning, I knew specifically, I'm like, I want to go to school in New York City. Like, that's where I'm going. I only applied to schools in New York. I I did decide to pursue illustration from the beginning. I think I found out about it as a major and like possibility because there was a another student at my high school 2 years ahead of me that ended up going to Pratt for illustration, which is a different school here in New York. So I feel like I liked it because it seemed like a really nice mix between like commercial but still artistic, like almost like I feel like I was thinking of it, and I think it's probably true that it's like in some ways like a halfway point between graphic design and like fine art, like it is still more like conceptual, more about your artistic vision, but ultimately it is still a field where you are working for clients, and that's like
Mhm.
I didn't like the idea of like having to try to make it on my own as like a painter or fine artist or something. Like I'm like I need a little more job security than that.
So we've got a couple questions in the chat that are
Hmm.
similar to kind of some of the questions I'm asking.
Hmm.
Somebody wanted to know, and this actually segues to one of my questions, like how you send your portfolio. And we were actually just discussing this before we got on air. How do people find your work? And I'm kind of old school, so I've been around for a while. Like when I started, you actually cold called people and mailed out portfolios, which almost never
Hmm.
happens these days. So what is your process to get work when you first started,
Yeah.
especially?
Yeah. So I would actually still do some mailings. Back when I first started, I haven't done one in quite a few years. But like I mentioned, like I showed you all the alien zine that I made. Like I remember getting some advice back when I was in college that was like, rather than trying to like contact 1,000 people, pick, maybe find like 50 to 100 like clients and like people that work at those places that you'd want to work for, and like send something that's like more specific and thoughtful to them, because like, no illustrator I know has 1,000 clients. Like most people work for like, maybe between like 10 and 30 clients over and over. And this obviously, fluctuates, some end up falling off, you get new ones, all that. But yeah, so I would send out an occasional physical mail promo back, after I graduated. But the vast majority of the way I got started with getting work was cold emailing. So, basically sending a individualized email, not like mass email, MailChimp, like I do, just like, it's tedious, but, copy and paste my message or whatever, make sure their name's in it and just send each one to each person. It's less likely to get caught by a spam filter, and B, I think people respond better to just getting reached out to individually. So the vast majority of the promotion I do is like that. I have like a client list that I've worked on over many years. And nowadays I don't do quite as much reaching out. I think, I've been working for about 8 years. So I think there's some degree of like, my work is just out there, and like, I definitely get some work from like Instagram and stuff too, but I'm not like a very, I don't have like a ton of followers on there or anything. So it's not, I don't think it's like one of the main avenues. But yeah, I think it's sort of hard to say. I think after a point it becomes like a little nebulous about like, where did you find my work? But I think with the internet, like your work's out there, it's around, but when you're starting out, I definitely recommend doing research on like what kind of specific field you want to be in, and doing research on the big clients that hire in that field, and who works there, which a lot of that can be done on like LinkedIn and just like general internet stalking.
Do you have any work on portfolio sites, or do you just have your portfolio?
I have Behance, and like, yeah, Behance, and I don't really update it that much. And like, yeah, I have like Twitter and Instagram. I don't really use a lot of other portfolio sites, to be honest. I think it's mostly just like my own site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like people finding work through. I'm going to move a cat here. Sorry, I had a cat that had jumped up on me, so I moved her. But anyway, yeah, Mark's saying when he was an illustrator, he used agents. Do you ever use an agent for your work?
I personally don't, but I have friends that do. I think from what I was doing, I was talking to my class at FIT about agents, and it seems like they're definitely like more common for books, and like kind of better for people who do books, because I think like if you have a literary agent, they only take like 15% typically, but like an art agent can take like up to 35% or something.
Yeah, it seems like just for illustration, agents aren't really as necessary anymore. Literary is kind of a different animal. Like if you want to write, it's really hard. It's not impossible, but it is hard. I mean, it's much easier to give people work because they see your work online, and that's how they find you. Usually, like even Google searches and stuff. And Brad was asking for the animation, what software do you use?
So I use a mix. I mostly use Adobe products. A lot of this, a lot of the like animation I showed in my slideshow, like the earlier stuff, like the like GIFs and like the loops that are at the beginning, those are all Photoshop. The video that I showed with like the NPR video, it's a combination of some Adobe Animate, which used to be known as Adobe Flash. So when I showed the process, like the initial roughs that are like kind of more colorful and like, that's all like done in Adobe Flash, which is more of an animation program. Some of the animation is done in Photoshop, and then it's composited together in After Effects. So it's, and again, I'm self-taught, so I feel like my animation process is probably not the most efficient, but really, I guess it works for me. But yeah, it's usually a combination of Photoshop and After Effects. I'll do Flash sometimes if it's like a lot of really heavy character animation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's more and more really good programs out there for doing animation and that sort of thing. Is that kind of is that one of your favorite things you like to do right now? Or do you kind of go with, I mean, I've found, as an illustrator, you kind of go with the flow. Sometimes you're doing one thing and sometimes you're doing another thing. I mean, it's always evolving.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I feel like I like doing animation if it's like within this realm of like, I am making and using it to like help communicate like one of my ideas or my like concepts. So like I've done work where I'm working on a team of animators to like animate a Microsoft commercial, and that's like my least favorite work. It's really quite tedious and boring. So I'm trying to get away from like working in animation in that capacity. Like I like to use it, but like I want to use it as a vehicle to like kind of help bring my own ideas to life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And this kind of segues into a question that Mark had when kids, sorry, I didn't mean to call you kids. When you're getting started as a professional illustrator or animator, how do you go about your quoting process? And I know that that's kind of a loaded question. Like, do you ask for budget first, or do you just kind of base on an hourly kind of thing? Like, how do you, especially an animation thing, because I would think like an animation project, that's probably can go well off the rails as far as time.
Yeah, and I think that's like part of why I've wanted to like get away from it. So yeah, I guess to overall, when I quote, no matter the job, illustration or animation, I really try to consider like the client. And like, you know, so a big corporation, charge them a ton, charge them way more than you think, charge them an amount that feels ridiculous to you because like they have so much money that they spend on advertising. When it comes to, you know, editorial and things that are like, you know, I find that the ratio of creative freedom to money is almost like perfectly opposite. Like, so, you know, a lot of the things I do that are like really fun and like have a lot of creative freedom, like don't pay quite as well. So like, for example, I got $5,000 for that NPR animation, which like for something that I worked on for like almost 4 months isn't very good. But, you know, they were very supportive of what I wanted to do for the whole process. You know, I wanted to work for it and I got other work from it. So it was sort of like, I feel like I made like kind of a calculated, choice to like take this lower paying thing because, you know, I had done illustrations for NPR before. So I like knew that they were like a nice client to work for and were going to give me a hard time. But yeah, I mean, as far as quoting prices go, it really does depend. One tool I'm going to drop the link into the chat, but a few friends of mine work on this project called Lightbox. I think, let me actually double check the URL, but it's basically a website where like different artists could submit like the rates that they got paid for a job. So you can actually look like, you know, okay, somebody's asking me to do a book cover. Like what have other people gotten paid? So I think that that's like a really cool resource. It's sort of like a, almost like a updated like graphic artist guild, like, but you know, actually from working artists. So yeah, I think this is like a cool resource. But yeah, so when I do animation work, I guess, when I'm doing like, when I'm working for like the advertising stuff, like, you know, that section I showed in my presentation, that's almost always done on like a day rate thing. So when you do that, like you don't own any of the work you're doing. Like you go into the studio, or I mean, now you just work at your desk at home, but you used to go into the studio and work there all day on their servers, on their equipment. You're not allowed to take anything with you. Like, you know, it's all theirs, you know, your name is not attached. Whereas like all the editorial stuff, it doesn't pay as well, but like I own those images. So I can theoretically, you know, make money off of them. And, you know, and some of them I have like either relicensing it to a new client or, you know, just like selling print, selling, you know, versions of it.
That's great. We just talked about that last week. We were talking
ownership and stuff.
You know, we were talking about rights and how you can sell second rights to images and why work for hire.
Yep.
You know, they better pay you a lot for it because you can't use it again. You know, and a lot of times, you know, and that's a discussion you want to have when someone gives you the work is, you know, do I own this? Do you own this? And how much are you going to pay me to, you know, so it can be relicensed.
Yeah. You all have a very, very good teacher in Christina here. That's like very, very good advice. Yeah. So really like quoting, it doesn't like, I feel like I see a lot of advice online that's like, oh, quote based on like how much you want to get paid and how long it's going to take you. But I actually think that ends up like causing people to lowball. And it's really a lot more about, the right usage and like the client, you know, like how big is the client? Cause like, you know, Coca-Cola wants to use your illustration as part of their brand. Like they're a huge brand, you know, that has like, you know, a ton of money and they should be paying you a whole lot for it.
Yeah. I mean, for advertising stuff, particularly, you can usually bill at fairly good rates. I mean, but we were talking about like within those rates, when you're self-employed, you have to pay all the taxes out of them. I mean, that's all the important like stuff of owning your own business and that sort of thing. You know, so we're just at an hour. So I know everybody's been, so let's just take a couple more questions. Do people mind if we go about 10 more minutes? Do you mind if we go 10 more minutes?
No, not at all. I feel like my presentation went a little longer than I wanted to. I would like to hang out and like, you know, answer everyone's questions.
You actually answered most of my questions, so it was very comprehensive. And actually,
that's good.
The thing that I loved about it, like I said, is you showed just what you do with a creative brief and how you interpret that is so important. So does anyone have questions in the chat that I can, or did I not get to something that got? So if anyone wants to ask a question in the chat, go ahead and put one in there.
Yeah, I see a bunch in the chat. So I can just sort of go through and talk about.
Is there anything? This is a good one. What do you do if you ever hit periods when you get too many or too few offers?
Yeah, it happens all the time. it's almost always literally one or the other. You're either getting more offers than you can handle, or, you know, you're like, it's been 4 weeks and no one's emailed me, like, what's going on? Is my career over? So I think, I mean, I've definitely like gotten better at riding out those slower periods, and, you know, I have been lucky and fortunate enough that, like, you know, I can ride, I've been able to always, like, you know, write off the money that I made in the busy period, you know, and it hasn't ever gotten to a point where I'm like, oh, ooh, I'm like, you know, out of money, this, you know, I'm gonna have to do something else. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's just the nature of it. There's always going to be periods of too much work, periods of not enough work, and, you know, learning how to like ride through those is, I think, one of the. I didn't really get good at it until like a few years in, but, you know, I think I'm better at it now. But, you know, when I'm in a period of no work, you know, that's when I'll take time to, like, you know, do more of the business stuff. Like, I'll send out some emails looking for jobs, or, like, you know, work on, like, yeah, just like, you know, there's always a million little things that need doing when you're a freelancer and, like, kind of have your own business like this. So, you know, I feel like I'm trying to get better at, you know, using the off time to, you know, get other stuff done.
And somebody here, and they asked the question again down here, what is your brainstorming process? And that's something we also talk a lot about in all of my classes, is brainstorming. So I do it through thumbnails. What's your advice for people that are wanting to come up with a lot of creative ideas?
Yeah. So I actually feel like I tend to start with words. Like, I do like a lot of like free word association, particularly for like the editorial work, when it's, you know, often like symbols and things that need to be communicated. Like, I feel like a lot of like word association. And honestly, like, as I progress, like, I feel like I used to do more of like the very like the type of editorial illustration is more like in a business section where it's like very conceptual, like this thing represents this and this represents this, and like this is what's going on with them. But like, as I move further into my career, I find that I focus more on like the mood. So like, how do I capture like the mood and the feeling of this piece? Which, you know, I do a lot of it through writing out like free word association. And then honestly, what I love to do is like write out a bunch of words, maybe come up with like a few like little thumbnails that I'm like, you know, oh, those could be okay. And then like I go walk the dog and like take a break for an hour and like just kind of let the stuff mull around. And I really think taking a second to like really do like a brain dump and get all your ideas out and then walk away and kind of just let them like percolate a bit, if you have the luxury of that time. That's what I find is most helpful for me.
And there's a couple portfolio questions. Earlier, somebody had asked how you do you send out your portfolio, which we kind of answered that. Like you had said how you apply for something like the New York Times, you kind of send them an email to the art director. I mean, most places have the art director listed and you submit work.
Yeah. So typically, so like for things, I feel like I find a lot of art directors online, and like, so again, it's a bit of it is like you know, just like sort of internet stalking people, but like LinkedIn is, I feel like that's like really the only thing I use LinkedIn for, is like finding where people work and stuff. But yeah, I will. So, you know, again, art directors, like, especially like at places like the New York Times, you know, they're hiring a lot of illustrators. Like, it's a huge newspaper. They hire, you know, dozens of illustrations a day. So, you know, these people, they're used to getting, like, they expect to get emails from artists who would like to work with them. Like, it's part of the process. So, yeah, I just tend to send like short note, link to the portfolio, maybe one or two small attachments. And, you know, not too frequently. I maybe would do it. Yeah, general internet stalking, exactly. We all, or at least you all grew up on the internet. I sort of did, I guess, a little later on. But yeah, so I'll basically just send out, I guess I could actually probably even just show you like a promo email.
And also, while you're looking at that, somebody asks about, and this is the dreaded portfolio question, which is like, do you show a little bit of everything, or do you just show one unified style? Where do you fall on the issue?
So yeah, I fall on, right. Okay. So I guess I see the question here now. Like, I think if you are trying to market a lot of different like skills that like fall into different, like, yeah, where do I fall on that? Right. So I'm going to say, like, I wouldn't put like graphic design in with like observational drawing, but like for me, like, I think my blend between illustration and animation, it kind of all goes together. Like, so yeah, I think the question of style is like, it's like a little, I don't know, maybe not like misguided, but I think your style doesn't come from like an external force of like, I have like decided that this is my style. It comes from drawing a lot. It comes from experiencing a lot. It comes from like consuming a lot of different things and like deciding what you like. It comes from growth as a person too. But like, I mean, my best advice is, just really draw a lot. Don't try to force yourself to draw like someone else. Like find what comes to you naturally, and go with it. But I would say, like, as far as your website, I think splitting it up based on like type of work. So like, and even like if it gets down to like editorial, like I can share my website and kind of go through how I have things divided. So I have like when you go to my site, it's just like I like to just have like a wall of images so people can look and like kind of see everything and go through and be like, oh, okay, I like this, I like that. But I do also have like animation, so like longer videos and comics, which are like, kind of a different thing. Like I have them in different tabs just so it's easier to navigate. And I would say, like, I think dividing up like this is nice, like where you can have everything together, but, maybe have it like on different pages. But like, I don't go down and then divide out like editorial illustration and like book illustration and advertising illustration. Like I kind of just have it all together. So yeah, sorry, I feel like I kind of rambled a bit there, but I hope that answered your question.
No worries. Let's do one more question. We've kept you on for an hour and 10 minutes, but it's been really interesting. I mean, it was really enjoyable to look through your work. Yeah. Does anyone have a final question? Does anyone have a final question that we didn't cover? I don't see any. I'm checking my list of questions to see, because I think we talked about brainstorming. We could talk a little bit more about, there was a aspect of Mark's question. I don't know if we covered, where it's talking about the freelance assignment getting assigned and then the process in between, which I think you kind of showed that, where you get the assignment, then you sketch. And one big tip for students in school. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to end on, actually.
Yeah, that is a good thing to end on. Honestly, yeah. So like, tip for students in school, ask like if there's other teachers or classes at your school that you're interested in, but like can't take, ask if you can audit the class. Like I remember sitting in on at least like 2 or 3 classes that were like, beyond what was required. And, made new connections that way, learned new things. And just like, yeah, be really curious, like really like, consume a lot of different things. Like I watch a ton of movies, I read a lot of books. Like I just look at a lot of art. Like I think taking in a bunch of different inspiration, like not like, and don't only look at like illustration, animation, like stuff directly related to what you want to do. Like, look at all kinds of art, like, yeah, just, yeah, be curious, be, inquisitive, and, don't be afraid to ask for help either. I think the biggest thing that like helped me become successful at this, and by success, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm paying my bills with art. I think that's my, at least my measure of success. It's just be kind, like lift up those behind you. I think I stayed in New York after I graduated, and there's like a big community here, and like I feel like being around a lot of other people that were my age, trying to break in and doing cool stuff, like people whose work I really liked. And I was like, wow, this was awesome. Like, being just like genuinely nice and like interested in other people's work, and like, making the effort to like form a community will do much more for you than like trying to, get existing huge artists to like, notice you or something. Like, I feel like there could be like a tendency to like obsess with like, celebrity and like the biggest people, but it's really about like those around you and, building something new for yourself.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing to end on. And Really great advice. I think that I think that and since we've recorded this, I think everybody can go back and watch it and really get some good advice about, a career in illustration is different for everyone, but there's some important
Mhm.
things. And I like how you said, to learn about a lot of different things. 'Cause I don't know how many times you have to illustrate something that you've never even heard of before. And we have to learn to be experts at how, not only how something works, but how to draw how it works or how to communicate. And
Mhm.
that problem solving is like the crux of being able to illustrate,
Oh yeah, yeah.
or
I did. I
animate
had
or
to do a
anything.
comic. Yeah, yeah, anything. Yeah, I did. I had to do a comic. Like just on that, it's so funny. Like I did this comic back in November, and it was just like a kind of 6-page, like in a magazine, like little comic, but it was like all about like this like dark matter experiment. So I had to like read all these like crazy things about physics, like all this stuff I didn't understand, but it was like super cool. And I was like, wow, this is great. I love knowing about this now.
Yeah, it's pretty
Um,
amazing the stuff we get to learn
yeah,
about, but we're not, we have to learn a little bit about everything, but we don't like have in-depth thought. We have to know how to draw it, but that doesn't mean we're
yeah,
physicists.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Just enough to visualize.
But on that note, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks everybody who has been in the audience. And this will also be available for you to be able to rewatch it. And thanks so much.
Yeah,
And
thank you all. And all of you here in the class, if you have any other questions or want to talk, anything comes to mind, feel free to email me. It's my first last name at gmail.com. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, I'm always happy to answer student questions, look at portfolios, anything like that. So please feel free to reach out.
yeah, well, thank you so much.